it can be established with a sufficient degree of probability that there is in the unconscious an archetype of wholeness. Okay, so he's stating emphatically that there is an archetype of wholeness in the unconscious. Okay, and we've been talking about that as the God image of as
that would be Job resolving his conflict with Yahweh. Right?
yes, right. I mean, it's Yahweh in the sense of an undifferentiated Yahweh. If it's like Yahweh is in one sense, and this is the issue here that we have to understand the steps. When an infant is born, it's Yahweh. Okay, it's got both good and bad in it, but it can't live in this world. Okay, you can't have an infant that just shits everywhere and it can't live in our society, right? In a human society, it can't live in a human society. Okay, but that's what an infant does. And so an infant has to separate itself from that pure Yahweh. Okay, I mean, there is pure Yahweh in every other creature. Okay, in the sense that they just learn what mom and dad does and they shit it wherever they want to and so on, right? But human beings don't do that anymore. Okay, we've learned, we learned since the 13th century, since everybody was dying of the plague, we learned that rats carry the plague, right? So we got rid of the rats. But there's no other species that figured out to get rid of the rats. It's only humans that did that. Okay, and the other species that don't experience the rats only don't experience them because the humans got rid of the rats in their area. Okay, but not because they made the decision to get rid of the rats. Okay, but so human beings stepped away from that Yahweh type of living. Okay, that type of living that Dr. Jung saw when he climbed Mount Ergon in Africa and saw the herds of animals and so on, and how they'd lived for 100 million years. And so those animals never learned anything. They're just living. Okay, they're living by instinct. And we're looking at the osprey up in Maine on the camera the last few days, and we're wondering if they learned anything last year, because last year they had 2 babies, and in one 5-minute period, eagles came through and took both babies away for lunch. Okay, the babies were lunch one fine day. And so now the osprey are back, and they're laying eggs again, and I'm wondering if they've learned anything. Maybe, maybe not. But even if the living osprey that come back every year to the same nest, which they do, okay, even if they learn something, do their progeny learn anything? I don't know. Okay, I'm positing that some creatures have memory of things that are unique to certain areas. Like in Dr. Jung's case, several of his visions involved hordes of people walking past him and, playing instruments and yucking it up, right? And he went up on the mountain one time and he ran into a simple shepherd, and he told this story to the simple shepherd, and the simple shepherd said, "Oh, well, you ran into the hordes of Wotan." Okay, and so in that area, people have that vision. Okay, and do all human beings have that vision? Maybe not. Okay, maybe it's only in Switzerland and some parts of Germany where that vision is somehow in the DNA. Okay, but maybe our ancestors wouldn't have that vision. I've certainly never had that vision, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that haven't had the vision. But Dr. Jung definitely had it like 3 or 4 times that he reports, and so because he mentions it in the 7 sermons, and he mentions it in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, where he had 2 dreams at Bollingen, where these hordes walked past the Bollingen house, and he heard them, and they were singing and so on, and then he woke up and threw open the shutters, and there was nothing there. It was a quiet night, so he was having a dream, a vision, and so that there's no doubt that vision was in his mind. That vision was in the old shepherd's mind, and that vision was so common that old shepherd said, "Oh, you experienced the hordes of Wotan, right?" But you and I haven't had that vision. Have you had that vision? No. And so there are differences, some differences in the human species, and they're archetypal. Okay, but I had a vision when I was 6 years old. I don't remember really whether it was a dream or a vision, but when I was 6 years old, I went to a movie that was about it was something like Jurassic Park. It was a very simplified version of it, but there was a dinosaur in this movie, and it was a black and white movie, and we were up in Alaska, and so I only saw this one creature in the movie, but the next night or within a few days, I had a dream about a dinosaur that wasn't anything like that dinosaur, but it was like dinosaurs that I have seen in artist renderings. Okay, and so I had a vision of a dinosaur that wasn't in my experience. Okay, so that had to come somewhere from my DNA. And another example is how very often you'll wake up at night and you feel like you're falling and you have a start. Okay, well, that comes from the time that we were apes living in trees, right? And we slept in the limb, and
Speak for yourself.
and if you started to fall, you would wake up and grab the limb, And so when you do that, okay,
It's like an instinctive reflex.
it's an instinctive reflex that goes back,
Well, there's a
I don't
bunch of
know,
those. There's the
many
one where
million.
you touch they'll root around for the
Who?
nipple, babies.
Oh, babies rooting for the nipple, and that goes back to all mammals. All mammals do that, don't they?
I don't know. I know they do it in humans. I mean, there's different. We have all sorts of reflexes and stuff.
Right, and so those all have to be passed through the DNA,
Well, interestingly, the September 11th, women who were pregnant,
Mhm.
and I believe, I don't have the exact study, all the figures, I just remember vague details, but the babies actually, the experience of it was passed into the DNA.
Oh my
Pregnant women.
goodness.
So I wasn't sure exactly how they measured that, but
Mhm.
that's sort of an experience
Goodness,
that's being passed biologically.
right.
And that's
But
very, it was women who were actually in the New York events or something.
were they in the building?
That's what I need to get more details.
Well, they were, yeah, they were
I'll look that up.
no, they were pregnant during the time.
That's what I have to look up for you all. So,
Oh,
'cause
but
I
it
shouldn't have
affected the babies.
Yeah,
somehow.
the babies somehow,
Get empirical evidence for 9/11 study.
the babies somehow had a vision. Okay, so anyway, are we satisfied with this? Both are borderline concepts for transcendental content.
Yeah, I never had a problem with that.
Contents. Are you okay with that now, John? I mean,
Well, I did. I'm glad John, I was still working at the room. He asked
what
for a
Dr.
question.
Jung is simply saying is that they are an idea of how things come from the transcendental, from the transpersonal, from the
Transcendent is the psyche, right?
Right, the transpersonal. Okay, what Edinger is calling it is the transpersonal, but it's the archetype. I mean, that's what this book is about. Ego and archetype, right here. Ego and archetype.
So I have
Archetype.
a question for you. If we got all these piece parts working with each other like this, why is it so murky? Why is the psychic side so murky? I mean, the physical side is
Because it's unconscious, and because, as Dr. Jung said at the end of his life, we know nothing about it. We know nothing. We know nothing about it. That's what he
You
said.
ever heard that story about, gosh, where was it? Anyway, they're like in the West Indies, right? And there's the Christopher Columbus crowd, the European invasion's going on, it's 1400s or something. And the idea was that if you don't have any perceptual categories, if you haven't learned something, so these ships appear on the horizon, and these people can't see them at all because they have no way of understanding that those are ships. Those make no sense, so they don't even see them. So the idea is, what you call clear and murky is actually what you're familiar with, not familiar with.
Or what you have a construct for, and what you don't.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
If
can't
you
plug
have
it in.
no way to, if you have no context for something, which most of your unconscious is, the unconscious is your context in a way, and
you're saying unconscious is like those ships, perception of those ships.
Yeah, but I'm using perception and not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, somehow
It's
Ha-
crystal
ha-
clear
haven't there
because
been-
this is so familiar, and we negotiate with this all the time. Whereas with the unconscious material, that's like the background. That's the the medium is. It's the you don't look when you see an image. You don't look at the paper. You look into the image and you see the image, so you don't notice that there's paper there.
Is that like the study where they had the people playing basketball and the person with the ape suit was walking
Yeah,
through them,
runs
but
through.
you don't see it
Yeah.
until they slow it
That
down?
works too. Yeah.
yeah, it's something
Because
like
you're not
that.
expecting your expectation
Yeah, I mean,
is a basketball game. at night.
it's like somebody walking in here in a clown suit. Okay, you don't expect somebody to be in here with a clown suit.
I would
So,
stand out.
well, it either stands out or it doesn't, but you might not
True,
notice
sometimes
it.
like when people are obnoxious, they actually blend better because people.
Or they.
But are we saying that certain cultures may have more of an affinity for the unconscious and therefore
Well, that's
Oh, I
certainly
would say
true.
India does.
they have
Definitely.
more of
I would say
it's more of a reality to them,
Yeah.
sort of like our physical reality is to us.
Yeah, but they
Sure.
also voodoo it up. I mean, just like we do. I mean, they have their own way of. There's people that always gain power either way you go, whether you go in or out.
Sure. So, I mean, so the cult of Ganesha makes perfect sense, actually. Okay, if you study it, or Hinduism makes perfect sense.
Jung said America was the most extroverted country in the world.
Yeah,
It was the most extroverted place there was. And what was his point? I forget. It was.
Isn't how we perceive
That's
it.
why he was talking about faith.
hmm
He was
Faith.
talking about extroverts have to have faith because they have no experience, inner experience of
Right.
God. Yeah.
right.
So they have to have faith. They have to believe. That's I brought up second.
They don't know.
They have to have a second-hand God because somebody has to mediate it for them, and that's the priest or the maniac Jim Jones or somebody like that.
Sure. Right. And